Welcome in to another episode of Betting the Pitch. This is the Boxing Day Premier League edition. I'm your host, _G Warner on Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon. If you're not a member of my Patreon yet, become a patron, patreon.com/_G Warner, the best spot to get all my picks, leans, plays, write-ups, everything all in one spot. And you can even download an app and get a notification every time I lock something in. So there's no real other, unless I've missed it, please send it to me, slide in my DMs, _G Warner, if you find that there are other soccer leagues going on. I think it's just the English Premier League during this Christmas period. Merry Christmas to everyone. Trying to get a quick, I guess, podcast in before we get to the second slate of the NFL here in the United States. I'm recording live from South Carolina. Hope all of you are having a great holiday season, and let's find some ways to make some money. So starting in the Premier League, I will do an ultimate best bet end of show. I'm not sure the best way to do that, but I'll figure it out in some form or fashion during this, as we're really doing it live, Bill O'Reilly style. So I'll start the first matchup, and this is on Boxing Day, so the 26th of December, recording this on the 25th in the late afternoon, we'll put it that way. We'll start with Newcastle hosting Nottingham Forest. So Newcastle, a pretty disappointing performance this weekend on the road at Luton Town. Now get to go back home and hopefully find a way to solve their ills. I don't know if Nottingham Forest will cure those ills, but they certainly have not been playing well. Just parted ways with their manager, who was a huge crowd favorite, and that's probably not a great thing for especially because I felt he was the most qualified to keep them up. He did it last season, and unfortunately, Steve Cooper is out of a job. Now, Nuno Espirito Santo came in. He has had success in the Premier League in the past, somehow tricked his way into a job offer to coach or manage Tottenham Hotspur, and things went horribly when he was there. So I'm not sure what to expect about that. And I think I'll break down each of the days for an ultimate best bet end of show. That's what I've decided to do. So let's go. So Newcastle currently a 1-goal favorite with all the juice at home. Over unders 2 3/4, juice all the way to under. Nottingham Forest are going to try to go on the road and keep this as close as possible, as long as possible. We're very unlucky to get a red card, an early sending off this weekend, and still fought back, scored a couple goals, took a lead, and then ultimately equalized at 2-2, but then gave up a late headed goal. Really poor defending, you could call it that, but being down to 10 men for around 70 minutes or so, I think you can understand non-clear heads at the end in stoppage time. With that said, Newcastle have been awesome at home, but they've really been struggling against all competition. Really, they've struggled to balance the Champions League with the Premier League and all the other tournaments that they're in. I think for that reason, Newcastle looked expensive to me as a 1-goal favorite, even though coming into the season, it probably would have been a bigger price. I think you're potentially getting Nottingham Forest at a lofty valuation here, but ultimately not necessarily because of the problems what they've had in their management and bringing in a new manager specifically. So I'm interested in Nottingham Forest getting that 1 goal of insurance. It looks like it's potentially going to hit 1 1/4 before kickoff. Wouldn't be surprising. It's an early start in England tomorrow in the northeast of England. But I would expect that there's a very good chance that this hits 1 1/4. And I'll be looking to see if this hits under 3. The juice doesn't certainly make it look like it'll get there. But even then, a 2.5 spread is not a huge difference in 2 3/4. So you do push half your bet if you land on 3. But I'm interested in betting against Newcastle. We saw Jamal Lascelles leave, and he's basically a captain in their team, but ultimately a fill-in at center back for the many other injuries they've had. We might see Sven Botman starting, which will be a new defensive type of setup. Same structure, but ultimately a new partnership. So I think there's some problems on the Newcastle side, and they're still getting lofty prices as a big 1-goal favorite at home. So Nottingham Forest not as beautiful on the road, that's for sure. But I lean to the dog and to the under, so that makes me feel even better about an under lean. Moving to the 10 a.m. window, which we have a bunch of games then. We'll start with Sheffield United holding Luton Town, a big matchup for bottom of the table type clubs, both off of very good results. Luton Town with a much more impressive 3 points from their victory against Newcastle. But Sheffield United, they took a lead and really hung in there at Aston Villa, which was taking a point from there. It was something that Manchester City and Arsenal, 2 title favorites, could not do. So pretty interesting start. Sheffield United currently a 1/4 goal favorite right now with all the juice in Luton Town on the road. Over under is 2 1/4 and is juiced to the over. Maybe we see this hit 2.5. I think this is a great example of 2 newly promoted sides. They're going to play very defensive football, and we might not see a lot of goal mouth action. We probably won't, but that's never necessarily a guarantee for under. A lot of times the teams outperform their XG, but usually that's what good teams do. And neither of these teams, I think, would qualify, though Luton Town certainly have that new emotional boost behind them as they try to, I guess, stay up or do the best they can for their stricken captain, who I think had a second cardiac incident in less than 6 months, I want to say. Doubt he's going to be back this season, but we'll see what Luton Town fight for. And of course, they got a really good scenario catching Newcastle United at home, who've really struggled and had awful road splits this entire season. Now they got to go, I guess, celebrating a big victory, but I got to go on the road to another team that's going to fight and do the best they can to try to score goals here. I don't know that I see a lot of offense in this matchup. It's currently very juiced on the Luton Town side, getting that quarter of a goal. I would imagine that it might close pick'em. That to me is probably overstepping what a Luton Town team should do. I guess I like the quarter, but that's a minimum for me right now. So at pick'em, I'm not interested, especially away from home. And Sheffield, maybe if they move to a pick'em, that would become a little bit more interesting to me. With that said, I'll put the quarter on my list as potential for the ultimate best bet, but I think I like under 2.25 the most, and especially if it hits under 2.5, as I think this is going to be the race to one, and then see if the other team can keep the other team out. It's possible in some of these relegation scraps that you see a lot of goals, but I think we see a lot more nerves and a lot less attacking and really just not a lot of talent. So I think we see a low XG, and you hope and pray that that'll eventually lead to an under there as well. Next, we'll go to Bournemouth hosting Fulham. Currently, Bournemouth a quarter goal favorite at home. All the juice is almost split a little bit more on the home team, Bournemouth. Over under is 2.75. She's very heavily to under. And I think that speaks to an incredible roller coaster that Fulham have been on, scoring 5 goals, winning 5-0 in 2 straight matches, it seemed. I think they did, and I think they scored 3 goals in the match before that, taking a 4-3 loss against Spurs, if I remember correctly. But Bournemouth have been playing great. They've turned around a really rocky, shaky start to the season. New manager has certainly been getting results, and Dominic Solanke might be the hottest striker in all of Premier League, maybe all of the world, maybe all of the galaxy. So Bournemouth, the quarter goal favorite, feels like an apt price. Certainly would have been different a few weeks ago, Fulham being in the league for a while, Bournemouth just coming back up. I guess Bournemouth have been in a couple seasons, but I do love the Andoni Iraola style that he employed at Rayo Vallecano in La Liga and has kept and brought that to Bournemouth. And I imagine it'll only get better in the future, assuming they stay up this season. And they look pretty safe, especially putting a bunch of wins together. I don't know necessarily they should be a road favorite like they were at Nottingham Forest last weekend, but I think a quarter goal favorite at home is fair. And I'm not looking to back Fulham at that in that area. Feels like it's just essentially home field right now is the spread. And I feel like Bournemouth are a better team than Fulham right now. Though with that said, I'm interested in potentially backing the under here, as Fulham are not really a goal scoring side. I think they're really trying to stay in the league, got to stay in the league last season because of their defense. And Bournemouth, they want to sit back and counterattack you. And that's really hard to see a home favorite score a bunch of goals in that fashion, because they're ultimately going to let their visitor have the ball. I don't think that's going to work very well for scoring goals in this matchup either. So I like, everything drops next to me, unfortunately, but I do like that under 2.75 here. It's very juiced at the moment. I don't know that much changes though if this hits 2.5. So I think for now I like it both ways, and we'll be looking to play under in that one on, I guess it would be Tuesday morning. Next, we'll move to Burnley hosting Liverpool. This is the night. I guess we got one more match after this. So this is the next window, the third window on Tuesday, Boxing Day. Burnley, a 1.25 goal underdog at home. All the juice in Liverpool on the road. Over under is 3, juiced all the way to over. So clearly Liverpool's offense is expected to snap right back into form. They did score 5 goals in the cup against a rotated West Ham side, but in their last 2 Premier League matches have 1 goal. Of course, it was at home, I think, against Manchester United and then against Arsenal. So now they get to go on the road and potentially score a bunch more goals. But Burnley have started to look like a more pragmatic side, not trying to out-athlete or out-skill all of their opponents, because they're worse athletes, younger in most situations. So they might have an energy advantage, but they certainly don't have skill, talent, or a track record. So Burnley playing a little bit more defensive, I think, will give Liverpool a lot of opportunities. And my concern right now is Liverpool have been in a bit of a scoring slump their last 2 matches. I'm not sure that changes much here. I like the Burnley side getting more than a goal at home. I think they can keep this close, so I'll put 1.25 on my list, especially as it looks like it might hit 1.5 sooner rather than later, at least before kickoff. And as for the total at 3, I mean, I lean under there because I love that push on 3. It looks like it might climb to 3.25, But if you're playing that, you're ultimately either of these, the side or the total, you're playing against the Liverpool offense on the road, and there's a good chance that they wake up a fair amount. And honestly, anything Burnley contributes to the total will probably be worse for that under. Next, we'll move to the nightcap on Saturday. On Tuesday, Manchester United a pick'em right now to Aston Villa with a little bit more juice on Manchester United at home. Over under is 3, and that is juiced very heavily to under. Potentially going to see this fall to 2 3/4. Now, Villa probably very disappointed. They had the chance to go top of the table, but could not beat the bottom side, Sheffield United at home. Not great, but they'll recover from it, I assume. And this is a good opportunity for them to do so against Manchester United side that have no idea what they're doing, are really stricken by injury, but that's probably a great excuse. And I feel like I'm playing PR associate for Eric Ten Hag, their manager. With that said, Aston Villa is the side I want. I don't think I want them at pick'em, though certainly getting odds would be of interest, especially if a road draw is a push, though I'm hoping Manchester United money hits. I just don't really know. Even with the popularity of the club, I don't even know that any supporter thinks they win this match against Aston Villa, who played so well. Certainly some bad road splits for Aston Villa on the road so far, but that's my interest right now. And I do like under 3 because Manchester United have not been scoring goals at all. And I do think on the road, Aston Villa have, or at least they're less likely to score a bunch of goals. So I think the push on 3 is important. And I don't see any reason why we want to back Manchester United or any over involving them, because they likely have to do some lifting on the scoreboard. Now move to Wednesday. We have Chelsea. Actually, before we move to Wednesday, I guess I should give my ultimate best bet for Tuesday. And then I'll ultimately figure out if it's ultimate for the entire show for this entire English Premier League match day 19. So for my best bet there, I think my biggest interest right now, I do want to fade Newcastle. That's certainly something I'm looking for, though I'm a little bit concerned about Nottingham Forest on the road. I do like the idea that there's going to be a very low scoring match in the relegation battle between Sheffield United and Luton Town. But I think I'm going to go with that Fulham under 2 3/4, a much bigger price than than the Luton Town Sheffield United match. And I think there's a good chance that we might see some kind of weird goals. But I also feel like we've been seeing very low scoring matches in the Premier League lately, and I don't think that stops. So I'll move to Wednesday. We'll go to Chelsea hosting Crystal Palace. Currently, Chelsea a 3/4 goal favorite at home with almost all the juice on Crystal Palace on the road. Over under is 2.5 with a little bit juiced, a little bit more juice. It's pretty much split, but a little bit slightly more to the over here. I just feel like I want to be against Chelsea as much as possible. I don't see a reason to change that necessarily. They've really struggled, and they, yes, are getting Nkunku back, but have also Sterling suspended, also Cole Palmer suspended. So they're probably first 2 in line penalty kick takers will probably be replaced, maybe usurped even by Christopher Nkunku. But ultimately, that's a team that has been struggling to score goals, don't really have a direction, are not good up front, are not good in the back. Midfield can only do so much. So for that reason, Crystal Palace, especially off a pretty good performance, I thought, we're pretty disappointed also potentially about squandering a victory at home against Brighton. They also have a bunch more of a rest advantage. Chelsea playing on Sunday, where Crystal Palace, I think, played Friday. Yes, it's on the road, but it's only across London. So I think there's a really good chance here that Crystal Palace can go to Chelsea and win a game. I don't really love the Crystal Palace offense, though, so that does make me probably more interested in under 2.5 than anything. But honestly, I do like that 3/4 as well, and might play both. We'll move next to I guess we got 2 more matches. So I guess the second of 3 on Wednesday, that is the 27th of December, the year of our Lord 2023. Brentford a half a goal favorite at home right now. More juice on Wolves on the road. Over under is 2.5, juiced heavily to under all the way. Might see 2 1/4 before this kicks off. If the line and movement continue in the way in this direction. Now, Brentford, they didn't play this weekend because they were supposed to face Manchester City, who were off in Saudi Arabia, stacking a bunch of oil money on their way to the FIFA World Cup title. Or Club World Cup is probably the best way to call it, because the World Cup is an international event. Regardless, Brentford a half a goal favorite at home. Very well rested. They should be. They haven't played in a while. Certainly things have not been going great for them, and they're probably very upset with sitting just in the middle of or I guess the top of the bottom half of the table, if you want to put it more exact. Wolves with a really good win, but they're really not a team that I expect to do much offensively. I don't think that's changing anytime soon. Brentford do find goals, but those have been drying up a little bit. And they're going to find, I think, a very difficult match on set pieces, because Wolves are pretty rugged, pretty tough, and are pretty good. Though they did, I think, sustain a pretty significant injury to their kind of defensive leader in that back line, and Craig Dawson, who seemed like he was going to get stretchered off and left the match early, which I doubt he would have for that type of warrior. So Wolves could potentially playing with a different back line. I think that does take my interest or pretty much remove it from playing them as a half a goal underdog on the road, though it does seem like there'd be some value playing against Brentford. I think the under 2.5 is my biggest interest here. It certainly could be tested a little bit by the injury, but ultimately at 2.25, I don't think I'm that concerned in case there's any movement. And I do feel like if Dawson is ruled out, this number might stay the same, or even the juice might flip a little bit as we see some over money might hit. The last one on Wednesday, we have Everton hosting Manchester City. Currently, Everton, a 1-goal underdog at home with almost all the juice. Over unders 2.75, juiced heavily to under. We might see this hit 2.5. Now, Manchester City come back from Saudi Arabia, a lot of travel. Everton basically gave everything they had and were a goalkeeper, a crossbar, then a goalkeeper's unmoving quad from stealing a 2-2 draw equalizer late on the road at Tottenham. Now they get to go home where their crowd is going to be huge. And honestly, Manchester City have been really struggling. So I don't really see a reason that they should be a full goal favorite here other than their name and their crest that's on their kits. So maybe Erling Haaland comes back for this match, but he hasn't played for a while. So even if he does, how sharp will he be? I think there are plenty of questions about what this Manchester City team are. Plus the travel back. I mean, most teams are used to just crossing England wherever it is, and that's not so bad because it's a really small place. Whereas Manchester City, they're unfortunately in a tough spot where they've got to cross time zones, continents even, and I think they're a team that I'd like to be against at this point. I don't know for the total here at potentially we might see 3, but the juice is going the other direction towards 2.5. I think from an Everton perspective, they're going to try to defend Manchester City as much as they can. Their offense has been good though lately, and Manchester City is one that I want to be against at this point. So I guess it does correlate a little bit to go under as well as betting the home underdog here. But I think Everton +1 is my biggest interest in those matchups. And for my, I guess the ultimate best bet selection from Wednesday, I'm going to go with that Crystal Palace under 2.5 goals. I still really like the side as well. But I think betting against the Chelsea offense is something I'd much prefer to do. We have 2 matches now on Thursday. Before we get there, I already mentioned if you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out, patreon.com. That's the real_G1, the best spot to get all my plays, leans, write-ups, everything. And you can even get notifications if you download the app on your phone. It's patreon.com. So it's the real_G Warner. Also, if you're not a member of Bet Online, where all these lines are coming from, or you're not a member of SportsBetting.ag, I swear they're partners. Their sites look the same. They just have different colors. So there's got to be something there. But if you're not a member of either of those sites, check it out because there's some promo codes that are in the podcast description. You can get a 50% match at Bet Online for a first-time depositor, and you can even get double your money at SportsBetting.ag. And I just took advantage of that myself using my own promo code. So I highly suggest getting out there, taking some free money from the casinos. The best way to increase our expected value or make ourselves a little bit more plus EV. So moving to Thursday, with Brighton hosting Tottenham right now. Brighton at Pick'em, a little bit more juice than Tottenham on the road. Over under is 3.25, and it's juiced a little bit to under, which is a little bit surprising to see any more juice on one side, especially toward the under in any match involving Tottenham. But you know they're going to go with a very high line, and they're going to play aggressively. I felt like they took a lead and ended up taking a 2-0 lead on Everton at home their last match, and were literally just bunkered in, taking on grenades for the rest of the match. Felt like 70 or so minutes. I guess unsurprising that Everton eventually found one. They had a goal ruled out and potentially could have scored one right at the death. But I think Brighton are going to have a lot of chances. They've certainly not had the greatest league season after, and really I think trying to balance 2 competitions in the English Premier League and also the Europa League. Europa League's gone well for them. They won their group, but things are going to change, or I don't know if they're necessarily going to change. Maybe they're going to get more used to playing 2 matches in a week. But Brighton should be plenty ready for this, while Tottenham have not been doing this season, and they have to go on the road after really fighting it and leaving a ton of open avenues to goal. I think Brighton are a really good spot here to potentially play. At Pick'em, I feel like that price is too low. It certainly makes sense with Tottenham, with Sonny and all the big names. But Brighton, I think, are a similar level football club and should be a quarter goal favorite here. So at Pick'em, I like that. And I think I like over 3.25, if anything. But as most of you know, any of you who listen to these podcasts or watch me on video on YouTube or Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave a 5-star review and subscribe. That'd be huge. But anyway, if you listen to me, I'm usually an underdog player and an under player. So that doesn't really jive in this match so well. But I do like the home underdog technically with Brighton with a better juice right now, slightly better, minus 107 at Bet Online. Moving to the nightcap on Thursday and the last match of this podcast. I'll get you the ultimate best bet in just 1 second. Arsenal, 1.5 goal favorite at home with a little bit more juice on the West Ham side. Over under is 3, just a little bit slightly to under. So Arsenal, they've been playing really well. I thought looked great on the road at Liverpool on Sunday or Saturday, the nightcap on Saturday. And they have, I guess, had last week off as they were eliminated from the Carabao Cup or the EFL Cup early, while West Ham took a ton of flack from their fans, media, especially their manager for the lineup he used. Considering they're pretty safe in the Premier League, they don't really think that Champions League is an option, so they could have tried to win a quarterfinal in the Carabao Cup, but they chose not to. Had a good weekend result, beating Manchester United, though they pretty much didn't look like they were there for that first half. But got a win. It was huge for their confidence, and now they go on the road to one of the best teams and one of the title contenders, and now are a goal and a half underdog. I'm tempted by the big price. I think West Ham are similarly talented to Arsenal, or at least much more similar than a 1.5 goal spread would suggest. They've been scoring a lot of goals this year, which doesn't seem like that will continue forever. But I guess it's hard to say it will stop. Mohamed Kudus is one of the best signings, I think, of the season. But there's a lot of questions about the West Ham defense. And unfortunately, they used to be a defensive side, and they're not that way anymore. And they're going to be under a ton of pressure on the road at Arsenal. Now, Arsenal have been struggling with low blocks. West Ham's manager is probably best known for his conservative style. I expect that to continue here. So there is some interest for me on West Ham taking that goal and a half, and also looking at that under 3, important push on 3. I think anytime or any, I guess, goals that West Ham contribute, that certainly puts the under in danger. But it might be better to play under 3 there than the side, because you get a little bit more space. If West Ham score and they lose 2-1, yes, you would have pushed the side, or you would have won your side bet, but you'll push the total. And I think a 2-0 Arsenal victory does feel fairly possible, maybe even likely, we'd call it. So for the best bet on Thursday, I'm going to go with that Brighton pick'em, as I just think that they should be a higher price favorite right now against Tottenham side. And I'll certainly be watching the juice very closely, because that might change sooner rather than later. So I already mentioned Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you leave a 5-star review, it'd be huge for our search rankings. And whether you're watching our Premier League or soccer shows, or NFL, professional football, American football, or college basketball, if you want to gear something to that, add a comment, question, anything that you want us to cover. I'll have it read by one of our special guests or my other co-hosts on the other shows that we do on the Betting the Pitch Podcast Network. Or I guess I will do it if it's soccer related, because I'm kind of by myself in that avenue at this point. Other than that, mention my Patreon. Check it out, patreon.com/real_rewarner. Become a patron. Best spot to get all my plays in the one place. And then thank you for all the support on pregame. You all have been awesome, and trying to keep the hot streak going there, of course. College basketball has been a great start to the season, and we're only looking to keep that going. Make sure you check out the college basketball podcast with AJ Hoffman on pregame. I think we're off we didn't record last night, so we were off for the Christmas holiday, but we'll be back on Thursday previewing next weekend's hopefully better college basketball schedule, because it's been pretty weak lately. But that's enough talking, stalling, whatever for me. We're 23 minutes in, and it's probably one of the shortest episodes that we'll do all season. But let's get into it. This is the ultimate best bet portion. This is the real_G Warner. This is Betting the Pitch, and this is the ultimate best bet from the English Premier League. We're doing the Boxing Day schedule here. From Tuesday, I like Fulham under 2.75 goals. On Wednesday, Crystal Palace under 2.5. And on Thursday, I like the Brighton and Hove Albion pick'em right now at home. A little bit better juice than Tottenham. And for the ultimate best bet on this show, I'm going to go with that Crystal Palace under 2.5. I'm trying to make sure that I really like the road underdogs when I'm playing unders, and I really like the Crystal Palace side here as well. Just my plan straight up is to bet against Chelsea until the market, I guess, adjusts, but it hasn't done it for an entire season. If you pull the second half of last season, the first half of this one, I don't expect that to change anytime soon. Crystal Palace have been great defensively for some parts of the season, have a defensive manager. They're getting a little bit healthier offensively, so I think that puts a little bit more fear in the Chelsea attack, and they have a bunch of attackers suspended. So grab Chelsea and Crystal Palace under 2.5 for my best bet for this episode. And that'll do it for whatever number edition of this, the Betting the Pitch. Thank you for tuning in, including the 4 or 5 that are live with me. Didn't give any heads up, so I appreciate you all. Again, any questions, feel free to throw through a 5-star review, and I'll read whatever's in there. Even if it's naughty or nice, considering it's Christmas Day, I'll do whatever that's on there. If you get the 5-star review, you can say whatever you want, and I'll have someone read it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy your holiday, and I hope to talk to you all soon, and I hope you all have a bunch of luck on today's best bets.